Hi there, and welcome to Oaklandside 510. I'm Tasneem Raja. Each week on the 510, we've been catching you up on some of the biggest news in Oakland, taking you behind the headlines, and previewing cool events around town. But today's episode is a little different. Today, we launch our on-air fundraising drive. As always, I'm going to start by catching you up on this week's Oakland news. And those of you who have listened before will notice that I'm flying solo on that today. I'm giving my newsroom compatriots a little breather. And then I want to talk to you about how together we can keep this podcast going, get back to some of the format that you love, and even make the whole show better. We need to raise $15,000 to produce the next 6 months of weekly episodes. We've raised 2/3 of that so far, and I am so grateful to each of you who has contributed. We need a few more of you to get us across the finish line. More on that later. But first, let me catch you up on some reporting that the Oaklandside put out in the last few days. Together, I think they really demonstrate the value of having an independent, nonprofit newsroom dedicated entirely to this city. All right, let's get into it. Let's do headlines. And it's just me, so let me take a deep breath and let's start rolling. Okay, I want to start with something that matters to every single person in Oakland: earthquake preparedness. Look, I don't want to freak you out, but several major earthquake faults cross the Bay Area. And according to UC Berkeley's seismology lab, there's a 72% chance that the Bay Area is going to experience a 6.7 magnitude quake sometime in the next 18 years. So we all got to get ready. Last week, you felt it, I felt it. There was a 4.3 quake that shook parts of Oakland. The next morning, our reporter Natalie Ornstein started working on a comprehensive guide on how to prepare for the next big one. But Natalie didn't just write a generic earthquake safety article. She put together a guide that is specifically for Oaklanders with hyper-local resources and information. So in her piece, she tells you about AC Alert. That's the emergency notification system for Alameda County that you can sign up for right now. Now that one I did know about. I didn't know about this next one. She also talked about the free MyShake app that provides advance notice for large earthquakes. Yeah, I downloaded that one. She walks you through these free personal emergency preparedness classes that the city of Oakland actually offers. She explains CERT training, so that's Community Emergency Response Team training, where Oakland residents can actually get together in a group and learn skills like extinguishing small fires and performing search and rescue to help their neighbors during a disaster. Oh, and homeowners, her piece talks about how you can apply for Brace and Bolt Awards. That's this state program that reimburses you up to $7,000 for seismic upgrades. This is the kind of practical, actionable journalism that could literally save your life or the lives of your neighbors when, not if, when the big one hits. I wanted to tell you about this story, number one, so that you can catch up on the information in Natalie's piece, but also because I think this is the kind of story that takes time and local knowledge to report well. Natalie had to research local programs, verify a bunch of information, talk to city officials, and present it all in a way that is actually useful to you and me. Thank you, Natalie, and thank you to the over 4,000 people who are supporting her work by being an Oaklandside member. All right, let's turn to something a little more contentious: Oakland's police chase policy. So a couple of our reporters put out a story on this recently. Our road safety reporter, Jose Fermoso, and our public safety reporter, Rosalind Romero, have been covering this deeply controversial debate in Oakland for months now. On the one hand, you have community members who say Oakland's crime problems are worsened because suspects know that police have restrictions on how they can chase them. On the other hand, you have safety advocates and families of people who were killed during police chases who say loosening these restrictions is going to lead to more deaths of innocent bystanders. Jose and Rosalind covered a recent meeting of the Oakland Police Commission where Police Chief Floyd Mitchell proposed 3 big changes. First, he wants to bring back the idea that officers and supervisors, quote, shall not be criticized or disciplined, quote, for ending a chase. He also wants to change the rules so that officers don't have to notify their supervisor that they're chasing someone until after the chase has begun. Now, officials would only need verbal approval to continue the chase. And he wants to end a special order that requires Oakland police to break off a chase if speeds reach or exceed 50 miles an hour unless a supervisor explicitly allows them to continue. Jose and Rosalind covered that police commission meeting, and they captured both sides of this debate. They quoted Rajni Mandal from Montclair, who supports the changes. They quote her saying, "It's about creating policies that are best practices. Training, policies, and procedures must take into account risk analysis and accountability." Then they also quoted Justin We Win from Bike East Bay, who opposes these changes. He said, quote, "The price paid for these chases is too often paid by community members and bystanders like Dr. Marvin Boomer," end quote. That is the Castlemont High School teacher who died earlier this year after a man who was being pursued by the California Highway Patrol hit a fire hydrant, which struck and killed the teacher. Also in this piece, and I think this was really important, the reporters reminded readers about Lolo Manai Sokai. He was an airport worker killed in 2022 after a driver that was being chased by 2 OPD officers lost control and crashed into parked cars, one of which landed on top of Lolo Manai Sokai. Critically, our reporters explained that even if these chases are implemented, OPD officers will still be able to chase only people that they suspect have committed a violent, forcible crime, or if there's probable cause that they used a gun to commit a crime. We just got through a lot. This is not simple reporting. You need to know the history. You need to know the stakeholders. You need to understand the policy details and what they mean in practice. You need to be at that meeting, listening to hours of public comment and debate. That is what Oaklandside reporters do. Let's move on to story number 3. This is a story about a turnaround in Oakland that our reporter Eli Wolf recently covered. It's the restoration of Tyrone Carney Park in East Oakland's Sobrante Park neighborhood. This half-acre park was closed to the public more than 2 decades ago, back in 2002, after a shooting left 1 man dead and 3 others injured. This park was originally named after a young East Oakland man who served as a private in Vietnam with the U.S. Marine Corps and was killed at age 20 during that war. For over 20 years, the park named after Tyrone Carney sat there, fenced off, unused, a depressing symbol of violence in Oakland. But the community never gave up on it. Members of the East Oakland Neighborhoods Initiative spent years working to bring it back to life. In 2017, they came together to develop a roadmap for improving infrastructure in East Oakland, including revitalizing neighborhood parks. Local community members partnered with Oakland's Public Works Department to develop a concept for the park and craft a grant proposal. And now, finally, it's happening. The city secured $3.5 million in state and city funding and broke ground on renovations. By next summer, the park will reopen with new play areas, fitness equipment, paved walking paths, a new lawn, and landscaping. The city also plans to install a memorial for Tyrone Carney. Eli talked to Sylvia Brooks. She's a board member of the Sobrante Park Resident Action Council who's lived in the neighborhood for 3 decades. She told Eli the park was a vital hub for local families and that residents spent many years trying to rally support for resurrecting the site. This is a story about perseverance, about community organizing, about East Oakland getting some investment it deserves. And it's a story that might not get told without local reporters paying attention to neighborhoods that too often get overlooked. All right, some more recent news. Jose, our road safety reporter, covered another transportation development just in the last week. This is a $30 million grant to transform one of the most dangerous stretches of Martin Luther King Jr. Way. So as Jose reported, Oakland's Department of Transportation, ODOT, is going to construct a 2-way cycle track and add traffic islands and these concrete bulb outs to narrow the roadway and slow down vehicles. The plan also includes adding streetlights throughout that stretch. And by the way, if you don't know what a bulb out is, don't worry, you're not alone. Our whole newsroom had to learn what a bulb out was when Jose started reporting this beat. So we actually have a whole explainer on this at Oaklandside. Jose explains how these new protected bike lanes are going to connect to Oakland's Green Loop, that linked network of cycling lanes and walking paths west of Lake Merritt. The city says construction will begin next year and continue until the end of the decade. Jose reminded readers in his story that the city has more plans for MLK Jr. Way. There's a plan to repave it from 47th Street to 61st Street and add safe street structures like better crosswalks, sidewalk extensions, and protected bike lanes. This is beat reporting. Jose knows Oakland streets and the city's transportation plans. He can connect the dots between different projects, explaining how they all fit together and root them in a more than decade-long project to make Oakland's streets safer. If as you're going about your daily life in Oakland, taking the bus, walking, biking, and you see construction going on and you're wondering what that is, I encourage you to go to oaklandside.org. There's a very good chance that Jose has not only written about it, but actually taken the time to explain to you why it's happening and how it fits into the wider context of streets in Oakland. I want to turn to a story that shows why we need local reporters paying attention to everyday issues and how important it is for residents to have a trusted newsroom in town. Our senior editor, Darwin Bongram, last week got a tip about a parking ticket scam targeting Uptown Oakland drivers. An Oakland resident thought to take a photo of a fake ticket they got, and they emailed it to us at editors@oaklandside.org. You know who you are out there, and thank you for getting in touch with us. Darwin looked into it and learned that someone has been putting fake parking tickets on windshields around Broadway and 24th Street. The tickets look similar to official city citations, and they even include a QR code that leads to a fake payment website. Some people have already been scammed out of around $70 a pop. The good news is Darwin's reporting may have foiled the scammers' plans. In his story, Darwin walks you through exactly how to spot the scam. And he reminds readers that the only safe way to pay parking tickets is to visit the City of Oakland's website. Never scan a code, never call a number on a printed citation. This is the kind of thing that only gets covered if you have reporters embedded in the community. Reporters who residents trust and want to reach out to when they have good information to share. Okay, let's end with a fun food story. Nosh freelance reporter Momo Chang covered 2 exciting additions coming to Prescott Market in West Oakland. Okay, the first new spot is called Fatto a Mano Alimentari. It's going to be an Italian takeout counter featuring Tuscan classics. So we're talking porchetta, which is going to be sold per pound or in a sandwich, salads, paninis, homemade pasta dishes, wine by the glass or bottle, desserts. The takeout counter will have a retail section with homemade sauces, pasta, and other pantry items. The owners, Elena Fabri and her husband, Gustavo Mutul, hope to also hold private pasta making classes right there at Prescott Market. And that's not the only new vendor coming to Prescott. FOB West is coming from Janice Dulce. She's the veteran chef from FOB Kitchen in Oakland's Temescal neighborhood. She's going to bring you dishes inspired by her Filipino roots and her time growing up in Guam and the Bay Area, such as tacos, grilled chicken inasal, and Guamanian red rice. Both are slated to open later this year at the Prescott Market Indoor-Outdoor Food Hall, which officially opened in April. Momo also interviewed Prescott Market's director and curator Harvinder Singh, who's also a founder of the West Oakland Farmers Market, and Singh told her that several businesses at Prescott are sourcing produce from West Oakland Farmers Market vendors and other local farms. The food hall currently has 6 vendors, and it's holding regular events, including a drag bingo night, a trivia night, a vintage market, live music on Fridays, and the Sunday farmers market. A lot going on. This is Oakland food reporting done right. It's celebrating new businesses, putting them in context, and showing you how Oakland's food scene is evolving. Okay, so those are 6 recent stories from the Oaklandside, all reported in the last few days. These are 6 very different stories. We're talking earthquakes and parks, police chases, street safety, creative scammers, and food. Here's what they all have in common. They came from reporters who live in Oakland, who know Oakland, and who care about Oakland, and who show up consistently to tell these stories. None of this reporting would exist without the over 4,000 people who support the Oaklandside's journalism, who are donating an average of just $10 a month. And this podcast cannot exist without your support. We launched Oaklandside 510 as a 10-episode experiment, and the response has been incredible. Those 10 episodes have been downloaded over 10,000 times. So we're talking 1,000 listeners per episode, which is excellent for a new local news podcast. We've heard from so many of you about how this show is changing the way you engage with Oakland. You told us about listening while commuting, walking the dog, making dinner. You say it helps you stay informed when you don't always have time to read articles. But here's the reality. Producing a podcast costs money. We need to pay our freelance producer. We need to pay for editing, equipment, and recording space. So to keep the 510 going for another 6 months, we need to raise just $5,000 more. We're 2/3 of the way to our $15,000 goal. If you've been listening to this podcast regularly, if it's been helping you stay informed about Oakland, helping you feel more connected to your city, please chip in. Every dollar helps. You can donate at oaklandside.org. We'll also put a link right here in the show notes. Thank you in advance. All right, that's our show this week. Thanks for listening to Oaklandside 510. The show was produced and engineered by Callie Rhodes. Esther Kaplan is our editor. I'm Tasneem Raja. Please donate to keep this thing going, and I'll see you next week. If we've reached our goal, we're going to put out a regular episode, more like what you're used to. If not, we'll stay in fundraising mode a little longer. Thank you.